High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live, apparently, and I'm still sitting here like doing things background. It's Revening's Wednesday, revenue party, people. We've got our hot topics and our hot guests that we'll be getting into. I've got a new camera angle, so I'm getting used to it. But anyway, as you know, good old-fashioned Wednesday style, we want to encourage you to delegate. So as you know, delegating is a really great way to grow your business. And as founders, or really even as executives or people who just have a lot going on, having someone to help you in your business is extremely helpful. And I wouldn't be able to do this episode without Cherry Assistant. So I'm just going to pop up that Delegate Now Cherry Assistant code for you. If you're watching this later on podcast, just email me at jessie@reveting.com with the subject line, I'm interested in Cherry Assistant, and I will send you more details. But this whole show couldn't be possible without the help of Cherry Assistant. And also the way I'm like doing everything right now is through my newsletter. So if you're not opted into my newsletter, which I send with High Level, we'll get into that here in just a moment. But the newsletter has all the juicy details. So we'll basically tell you what's coming up. We got a list of all the upcoming Wednesday guests for the next couple months. We've got a recap of this episode coming up that we'll send next week. And then we'll also let you know that following day. So we sent it this morning already for this week, and it goes out every week. Then I'm like going through the news, and I'm looking for B2B marketing news to stay up to date on what we need to know to help us grow revenue for B2B marketing. And so the topic for today was actually live streaming. There was an article about that we can grab, and we can share it here in the comments in a little bit. But I'd love to know where all of you are tuning in from. Also, High Level. So if you are listening to this on podcast, go to reveting.com/high level, or just scan this code right here if you are watching. But I use High Level for everything. I coach on High Level, but High Level is where I build my marketing automations, landing pages. Now we have calendars in there, and then we have all of our clients in there as well because I've white labeled it. So technically for my clients, it's app.reveting.com, but behind the scenes, it's High Level, but they all know that. Whatever. You know, it comes included with the coaching program, and also for my service clients, we get them on it as well because it just makes it easier for everyone. We know what we're doing. They get the software they need, plus CRM and a whole bunch more capabilities. Just research High Level and you will see. But this is a 30-day free trial if you want to check it out. It's my affiliate link to get you the full 30 days. Otherwise, again, if you're on podcast, just go to reveting.com/high level. But without further ado, I want to bring in our guests. I am so excited to welcome on Alison and Dean. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Well, let's get us started with your intros. So we want to know, in good old-fashioned Wednesday style, what brought you to Wednesday today from birth to now in 2 minutes? Could you kick us off, Dean?
I was going to go second because it's only, I'm an old guy, and it's only fair to have
That's
lead.
why I thought I'd throw it off. I don't do things traditionally, you know?
Interesting. Okay. So my family's been on this little, kind of big island for the last couple 100 years, and I left and moved to the United States And now there are essentially two kinds of copywriters in the world these days. And most folks are content writers, which is great because a lot of businesses need a lot of words written. So they write blog posts and articles and social media stuff and that kind of stuff. And I don't write any of that. The other kind, much smaller group, we're specialists in making somebody interested in a company or a product, as opposed to writing for people who are already interested. And my job in particular is I mostly work with B2B firms, especially ones who do sort of long sales cycle or complex sales. And my job is to nudge and sort of pull the senior executives at that target company into a conversation with the sales team at my client company. So the last 6 months, as example, I've been hired for and written for Accenture and PaySafe and Quest Software and Fortive, Accruent, like a lot of big companies. And the job there is to understand how to sort of insert them into that very busy executive's day and get 2 or 3 minutes of focused attention and nudge on to have that person engage. That's pretty much it. And I first started because my dad was the manager of an independent bookstore when I was about 14. And for most of my life up until then, when I was 14, and we used to get to read any book we wanted. This was almost like pre-internet, so it's kind of like having your own library. As long as we didn't break the spine, so the store could still sell it, we could read anything we wanted. And I ended up reading this book. It was published God knows how long ago, 100 years or something, called Scientific Advertising by a guy called Hopkins. And just the idea that you could think about something and write something, and then later, even years later, someone would read it and do something because you wrote it, blew my mind. And so even though I went into a corporate career as software developer and project manager and marketing and sales after that, I've been basically copywriting like that in the field I'm in since I was 14.
That is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm glad that you took up the full space. I could tell there was about a time at about 30 seconds left that you thought about maybe stopping, but I left you there full screen and you took it all up. So I know, with your whole ability to get things so concise with copywriting.
Yeah. Well, 200 episodes of my own podcast. I'm getting good to figuring out the timing in my head.
I love it. Alison, well, I can't wait to hear your full life story as well, from birth to what brought you to now. Could you please tell us your story?
Oh, you set that bar pretty high, Dean. That's a tough act to follow. Well, birth set me up as the baby of 3 girls in New Jersey, which meant that I was pretty much pounded for the first 18 years of my life, which made me very, very tough Jersey girl. And from there, I went on to be really an entrepreneur after college. I did start in corporate, and I was tough. And then I started my own business, and I got even tougher. And I remained as that really rough kind of boss. And I was raging, and I was always kind of the lioness in business. And that went on for quite a while. And then I started businesses overseas, and I kept being the rager, because that to me meant that I was being honest and upfront. And that's what it looked like to be sincere with people. And that was my way of being. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a situation as CEO working for someone that was very well known and very powerful. And I was completely and absolutely intimidated for the first time in my life. And I went back to school to get a graduate degree at Berkeley. And there were all these hippies that were very kind. And one of my courses was in high impact leadership. And I couldn't believe that there was a way to lead and be very gentle. It made no sense to me. And that led me to become a coach, leader as coach. And that was very, very different for me. And I've learned that being honest didn't have anything to do with being a tough Jersey girl. It just meant being honest. And that being raging was just a style. And I learned a new way of being honest. I could be gentle. And as time went on, we went to the pandemic and I started a new career because my old career went away with the pandemic. And I became an executive coach. And that is what brought me here today as an executive coach. And I am much more gentle than I used to be. But every once in a while, that Jersey girl does still come out at unexpected times. And I am remarried, and my husband does say to me, would you please put your coaching hat back on when I'm being a little smart?
I like that. Please put your coaching hat back on, because it requires you to like feel into the discomfort, right? And I know. Yes. So with that, let's get into our first topic. And we've got some really great ones, and you both really set the bar high. I think the audience knows here who's listening. If you are on any of the channels, there's like one of you on Twitch, a couple of you on Instagram, which we don't see in here. And if you're commenting on Instagram, we don't see that in here either. On LinkedIn, if we don't see your comments, it's because of your privacy settings in LinkedIn. But each platform has its own, nuances. But anyway, let's get this clock turned off here and pull up our first topic, which is going to be leadership growth. 3 strategies for unshakable confidence. Could you kick us off with that, Alison?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Well, unshakable confidence really comes from being comfortable with not always knowing what you're doing. It's okay. Because confidence comes from actually making mistakes, learning that it's okay to make a mistake, and keep moving forward. There is no way to always know what you're doing. It just doesn't work that way. Confidence is something that comes over a period of time. Ultimately, it comes from mastery of knowing what you are doing. But it's always a process, and hopefully it's a lifelong process, and you are always growing and getting better at what you're doing. It also means being highly vulnerable and getting feedback. You need to be asking people, how was I? Was that good enough? Is there something I could do better? And learning from that feedback, taking it in and practicing, getting better at what you're doing, truly listening to the feedback that you're getting. A lot of people will ask for feedback and then not change their behavior. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is actually changing your behavior and taking the risk of trying something new, which is uncomfortable. It is always uncomfortable to try something new. There is no way to create mastery unless you're stepping into that discomfort zone. If you remain in the zone of comfort, you're never going to get better. You're never going to stretch yourself into that discomfort of learning and growing. You really need to act before you feel ready. I know that sounds weird, but you do need to do that. And people will say, oh, you really have to be ready before you get there. It's not true. You really have to start doing something before you're ready to do it. That's how you get masterful. There is no other way to do it, which means you have to be willing to make mistakes and be willing to say, I'm sorry, I did not do that correctly, and I will never do that again. Figure out how to never do that again, which is very, very important. Now, you also need to know what you are good at. Confidence starts with clarity. What are you good at? And being able to say, this is what I'm really good at, and then get better and better at it. That's why books like Good to Great exist. How do you know what your strengths are? figure it out, and then tell yourself that story of what you are really good at and be proud of it. And also know what you are not very good at, and that's okay. Being able to, as they say, fail quickly is a thing. It's all right to make the mistake, fail quickly, learn from it, and move forward. We have all been there.
Wow. I put it in the comments myself, like, damn, straight to the heart. You got me there. So my only thing I could add to that is the book, what is it called? I just quoted it yesterday on a different podcast, but basically the body keeps score. It was one I was listening to. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about it because it talks about understanding, because you're talking about taking action early. Well, how do we take action early confidently? And part of it is understanding how we feel. What do we want? And if you don't know, sometimes you can feel it in your body. Like, thinking about that gives me anxiety. Thinking about that makes me excited. Thinking about that, or I tie in yoga or working out, and that mind-body connection helps me with a lot of that. But what would you add to that, Dean?
I think, first of all, I don't know, Alison, have you ever heard the phrase, the difference between the East Coast people and West Coast people is that the West Coast people are nice but not kind, and the East Coast people are kind but not nice?
Oh, no,
right?
that's
Or
true.
the example they give is you break down on the side of the road with a flat tire, and in California, people are like, I'm really sorry that happened to you, and like, I hope this works out for you, and I hope the tow truck gets here soon. And on the East Coast in New Jersey, they'll pull over and change your tire, but the whole time they're saying, I can't believe you were so stupid that you didn't even have a good spare, right? And somehow you managed to take the best of each of both of them and put them into one career. That's what occurred to me when you were talking about that.
That's wonderful. Thank
So
you.
you've merged the East Coast and West Coast philosophies, I guess. That's pretty good.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I do too. I mean,
thanks to the
if
West
you don't
Coast.
mind, I would love to use that. And
It's
I
not
will
mine,
quote
so you can steal it like I did, I think.
Well, on this topic of leadership growth, 3 strategies for unshakable confidence, anything else either of you would add? I mean, this is actually something I deal with a lot with helping founders build a personal brand and helping them live stream, doing what we do now. This is just a flagship for what we do for other businesses. We help other businesses go live on LinkedIn, and then we repurpose it to podcast, short form video, etc. But my biggest, what do they call it in sales, objection is imposter syndrome. Basically, they're like, I don't think I'm the person to go out and speak on this. I don't think I'm the person to go live on this. I don't think I'm the person to have all these video clips going out about me. And that's a tough one. But with people like that, since you do podcasting, start with you. What would you say to that?
Well, I have this list of about 18 guidelines for all of my clients that we talk through so that they can get into the right framework because, in my case, I'm especially focused on the first few moments up to the first few minutes of some reader's attention, right? An ad, an email, a promo on video, whatever, right? And one of the things is, one of the guidelines is, every time you sort of go out into the world and put yourself into someone's life, like we do, in cold outreach and stuff, a certain amount of confidence has to be there's like a confidence bucket in that interaction. And if you don't bring the confidence, the reader is not going to fill that bucket for you. You can't, right? You have to show up with the confidence. I lay out the difference between assertive and aggressive in our messaging and tone. And I said the difference is nobody wants to be aggressive. It puts people off, but you need to be assertive. And assertive just means this is true, as far as I know, or I believe. This is true, so I'm stating it as a truth. And so you have to show up with enough confidence in your tone and messaging and style so that the reader gets to relax into certainty and follow along with what you're trying to propose, because they are not going to meet you halfway and take the time to figure out if they should be investing some of their own confidence in you. Instead, they'll just they'll move on. They'll scroll. they'll go to the next thing. So you do have to show up. You have to have enough confidence, or at least convey enough confidence from the jump, so that they get to relax. It's not their job to backfill your confidence. It's your job to let them relax into certainty with whatever it is they're reading or listening to.
And another angle on that, though, from my perspective, is also as a founder selling, you can kind of see the red flags before you sign a customer up. Like, how long is this going to take me? What is the cost of this going to be? I need to raise my prices as it is. Do I want to take this on? So, like, red flag people, when you're going out and looking for a marketing agency, the interview goes both ways. But I digress a little bit. But I want to hear your response to all of this as well before we go into topic 2, Alison.
The idea of fake it till you make it can also play a role in this, where it's curtain up, you are on, and you need to prepare before you walk into any meeting, what Dean is talking about in writing. And when you're making that presentation, when you're going on your podcast, when no matter what you're doing, coming in front of your customer, being in a meeting at work, deep breath. Who am I? What am I projecting? What do I want these people to say about me when they leave the room? That's what you're projecting. That's who you are. And you need to just go out there and project it. And what Dean said, you've got those first minutes at most to make that impression. Dean does it with words. We have to do it with our visual and our presence. And that's it. And that's what you've got. And that confidence just comes through. You've got to shine your light. And that's what we're talking about with leadership. And when you shine your light, you allow other people to shine, which means that client is going to feel good about themselves. And when your client feels good about themselves, they're going to want to buy what you're offering because they feel you understand them.
100%. Yeah, because they know that you'll make them feel confident. I respect that a lot. Okay, so that was great. And I love the part about just shine. So yeah, I mean, let's all just shine. And let's move into topic 2 about cold outreach and switch gears completely. But cold outreach, this comes up with my clients all the time. I think last week, one of my clients had a domain blacklisted, and so like, we got to think about, they come to me like, now what do I do? Okay, well, now we'll help you, but now it's kind of late, but you can do things like email reputation in terms of like warming up your email domains. And that's for email cold outreach. So email cold outreach is completely different these days. But let's talk to you about cold outreach, Dean. Can you kick us off with standing out to CxOs in particular?
So let's go back a few years. And so I forget, I wish I could find this, but there was there was a business school that convinced for a big project, a bunch of Fortune 500 CFOs, not CEOs, but CFOs. And most publicly traded companies, the CFOs, like just about the second most important person in that company. And they were, the students were allowed to shadow the CFOs for a day or two. And once they all sort of came back and filled out their findings and stuff, they noticed that almost every one of the CFOs had a casual game installed on their phone and pulled it out one or more times per day. And just so we're clear on the terminology, a casual game is any sort of like little tiny game where you could clear a level in just a few minutes, whatever a level is in that game, right? Clear a board, match up all the jewels or whatever it is you're going to be doing. And they went back and they followed up and they said, hey, so about the games on your phone, like what's happening when you pull that out of your pocket and just start playing with it? And it came down to one thing that you'll probably not be surprised by, and another that was kind of surprising. And the first one was, well, it's a nice little distraction from all the busyness and stress of the day. And then, but the second thing was, and it's nice to get a sense of accomplishment. Right. And these are among the most accomplished people in corporate America. Right. If you're a CFO of a Fortune 500 company, you've come a long way. And yet, in most people's day, no matter what level you're on, you'll welcome a little welcome distraction that gives you a sense of accomplishment, because most days we don't feel like we've accomplished all that much, right? We take a step forward, but the company took 2 steps back or whatever. And so the problem, my specialty is probably the very hardest cold outreach that there is. And what by that I mean, there's no way to like instantly show a result from it. No one buys a $10 million, SaaS agreement because they got one cold email. It's not a thing, right? So it's a long sales cycle, probably 6 to 24 months. And it's hard people to get to. And they're receiving just an ungodly amount of cold outreach every day. And so the approach most folks will take is they'll try to either convey urgency in when they reach out to you, but you know as well as I do, someone sends you something and they're trying to convey urgency. Their urgency is not yours, and you're automatically kind of like, right? Or they'll really try to convey value very quickly, and that can work sometimes if the offer is good enough. But what we find lately is as sort of AI fills up everyone's feed and everyone's inbox with auto-generated kind of stuff, the concept of a welcome distraction works probably best of all. And so what you end up with is, if you imagine sort of a timeline of a high level person's day, it's incredibly fragmented. It's like meeting, focus work, meeting, but you do get these little slivers of time, 10 minutes before the next meeting, or 3 minutes before I go do this or whatever. And if you can understand that you're not a priority to that person, they don't know you, there's no way for you to be a priority, but you can be a welcome distraction and an accomplishment that they can handle in 3 minutes. So either pass it on to the right person in the company, or reply back, or click this or whatever. If you can show some kind of little accomplishment and written in a style that's not trying to be urgent or sort of overload them, but just be a welcome distraction in between all of this stuff in their day, you end up with much better engagement rates, and you're much more likely to start moving that company into a conversation with sales.
I love that. I want to invite you, Alison, first before I comment. What is your take on this?
Thank you, Dean. That is something that is so deeply resonant for me, where you're right. I do that with games. I've got a game that I can glance at for 30 seconds, and it never occurred to me that that was what I was doing. And you're right, I do the same thing with my inbox. And that I will, if that reach out will make me actually connect with the individual. Thank you for that. That is absolutely brilliant. And I would engage. I do engage immediately. Yeah. That is not something I have ever consciously realized is happening. And the rest of it, forget it. You make me pay attention to you, you're gone. You are in my,
Yeah.
You're deleted.
For sure. And don't be spammy. And even if you do land in the inbox, and there's multiple ways to do cold outreach. I know I only mentioned email, but what's your favorite method, Dean?
Oh, there's still nothing that'll match cold email for return on investment, but it does get progressively more difficult every single year. Everyone is against you, right? Like the spam filters are against you. The email service providers are against you. They keep adding in new requirements and authentication at domain level and your DMARC and your SPIF and all that kind of stuff, right? But and so where before I think the average was about $42 for every $1 ROI, now it's down to like 36, but there's still nothing close. The next one is like very targeted social media ads at like 11.
Oh, wow.
Dollars per $1 spent. So, and that's at the best case. So email is still like crazy. The problem is, like I said, it's just that it's so popular for companies to just send out stuff to the world, right? What we end, one of the very first things we have to go through in all of my engagements is say, look, you can imagine that there's a bunch of work that you have to do and we have to do, and then there's a bunch of work that a reader would have to do, right? We have to figure out what we want to say and what's the best way to say it. And also, we have to do 100% of our work and 90% of the reader's thinking and feeling before we show up in their life. So they only have to do that last 10%. I tell them it's like if you ask someone out on a date for a first date, and at the end of the date, you have to lean in 90% of the way for that kiss. So if you wait halfway, you're not getting a smooch. But if they only have to make that last 10% decision on whether they're gonna like seal the deal, so to speak, you're way more likely to get the kiss at the end of the first date. So we have to do all of our work and 90% of their work. And most companies or most people don't do any of the reader's work. They only do their own work, and then they send it out to the world and wonder why they have a reply rate of like 1% or something.
Yeah, exactly. I find that most people really don't understand cold email. They want to go, buy a MailChimp account and just blast 1,000 people, and you're just going to hurt your domain if you do that. And then, unfortunately. So I'm curious, Dean, what's your favorite cold email tool? Do you use like a Smart Lead or an Instantly or something like that?
I'm old school. I still use Mailshake for my own stuff.
Okay.
And then the clients, it doesn't really matter to me, whatever the clients want to use, right?
Yeah.
It's
fine. We had the CEO of Mailshake on this show, so it's not old
there you
school.
Go.
They're still popping.
Yeah. But whatever the client has, I mean, I write the words, so I don't have to particular. There's almost always a team for the size companies I'm dealing with. There's already a team that handles the platforms and stuff. What they don't have is someone who can like write the words that get someone's attention.
Gotcha. Such good information. Yep. Well, with that, I'm going to transition us really quick before we get into our third topic, which is authentic leadership, the 5 key pillars. And then topic 4, we have AI and outreach, the good and bad. Let's get into a couple messages from our sponsor. We got Cherry Assistant. You guys have to check out Cherry Assistant. I know I put the QR code up here earlier, but let me do it again really quick. It's right here. But I'm going to play the ad, and you can just hear from Cherry Assistant themselves. In the ad, you'll hear the voiceover from DJ Kim. He's founder and CEO of Cherry Assistant, actually. So they're really great. Actually, he, before that, was with Data Ghost, and Data Ghost was acquired. And when they were acquired, they thanked WinsDay for getting them their first 100 users from the show. So that was amazing. And now they've re-sponsored via Cherry Assistant and also completely revamped my business, because now I can scale a marketing agency with the help of Cherry Assistant, and others are doing other businesses. So check this out.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM and Go high level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
Yes. So this is the menu right here of services that they offer. That's also the QR code if you're watching. And also, if you're on a podcast and you're hearing this, just email me at jessie@reveting.com. I'd love to help get you connected. But they help with lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistant, sales presentation, preparation, data entry and cleanup, customer support, project management assistance, and so much more. But definitely check out Cherry Assistant. And then real quickly, I want to tell you a little bit about High Level. So High Level, I think I mentioned it earlier. We're going over this. I have this really bright light in my eye. We're going over this in the coaching program. So right now, we've been working on building funnels, masterclasses, automations, and that starts with a landing page. So we start with the landing page. For many of the people in the program, they're building a masterclass landing page. And then that masterclass landing page tells us all about the masterclass, of course. It has a web form, and then it sends whoever fills out that web form to an email automation, SMS automation. However you hope to reach out to them, you want to nurture them toward that event. And yes, you want emails going out an hour before, the time of. All of that gets pre-planned with automation. We're doing that with High Level. We're helping clients do that. Another thing we're doing right now that people are loving, actually, is we just built a custom calendar for businesses that want to set up podcast guesting. So like when someone books on our show, we have an automation of emails that go out to them. Now we built that custom. The emails are automated. Layla won't have to do as much work. Things get, tasks get set. Things are done for us. And we can take that calendar template that we built for us and give it to our customers, just switch out the logos and everything and wording. But if you're looking to start building a podcast, we would love to help you. And recording it live is the way to go. But High Level helps us do all of the back end work with that for our hosts, our guests, and they are hosts of their own show. But High Level, what we primarily use it for is the scheduling tool. So after each episode, we get so many video clips. We have to post them across channels. And I digress. Definitely check out High Level. If you're listening on podcast, go to revening.com/high level. And let's get back into topic 3, which is authentic leadership. I love these leadership topics. And you're a great coach, Alison. So this is one of my favorite topics. I just was on a podcast. It was called the Warm Blooded Founders live stream. Actually, they disclosed it all live. So they're my client, and it's the first episode of their series. And they talked all about authenticity last night. So I heard all about this. So I'm really excited to hear your take on authentic leadership and your 5 key pillars.
Thank you. Well, authenticity, of course, is the pillar for being a leader. It is so important, and what that really means. So what is authenticity? What are we talking about? Well, number 1 for me is self-awareness. Don't kid yourself. No self-lying. That is out. You need to really know who you are. Be honest about it. No telling yourself stories. No fake stories. Not allowed. It is about knowing your strengths, what you're really good at, and what your impact on others is. I find that is one of the most important things. Your intention is not the same as your impact. And many people live by their intention and not by their impact. And that's where self-awareness comes in. And that's where your listening comes in. And listening, as we were talking about before, to the feedback. It is not about your intention. It's about the impact of your behavior, self-awareness. And when you lack self-awareness, you lose trust immediately. Building that trust is very important in leadership. So the most foundational piece of this is the self-awareness, intention, and impact. Make sure that those 2 go hand in hand and are the same. The next pillar, number 2, is clarity of vision and your values. So really, where are you headed? If you're the leader, people are going to be naturally brought along with you. And that means that you need to know where you're headed. What is your vision and what are your values? And values are foundational and those things that you're not going to change. It is your why. Why are we doing this? Simon Sinek's book, Begin with Why, that is so important. The how and the what follow. But why we're doing this? Why are you getting out of bed in the morning? Why are you doing your job? Your job is important because it has the impact on the why of the corporation, the why of your life. Why are you doing what you're doing? Predicated upon your values, what's important to you. And as a leader, you really need your foundational values. And those are the things that you are not going to give up on. Consistency and integrity go along with that. The people trust that you're going to be who you say you are. You are consistent about that, and your decisions come from your values, consistency, and integrity. I am who I am, authentically. That is who you are. And people trust that you will always be that, no matter what. And that takes a lot of courage. That is number 4. And it is having the courage to be consistent, even when times are very difficult. And that is having those conversations nicely. We're back to being nice, being gentle and kind, and telling someone the truth, because that's the way other people get better. And you're able to say, you know what? That wasn't necessarily the best way to make that happen. Let's talk about our goals and our values and how you can do this thing in a better way. It's not a difficult conversation. It's a kind conversation. You really need to let people grow and to empower people as a leader. Fifth pillar, empowering others. It's not about people following you. It's about teaching people how to be leaders themselves. And that's what makes a great leader. It's about being the shining light to let others shine in their own light and helping people grow and having those conversations that unfortunately are deemed as tough. They're not tough. They're empowering conversations. That's how we all get better. It's that stepping into the stretch zone for someone else. Help them do that. Help them see that they can be better. Those are very kind growth conversations. It's not so difficult. That's how people begin to trust you, that you will always be there for them, even when times are difficult. So those are the 5 pillars of leadership: being authentic, being yourself, having true values, being consistent, and always being exactly who you are, no matter what is going on. Times are great, times are tough.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that was such a great way to summarize all of that. Thank you. I think the very beginning, self-awareness, that do you see that as being a problem with a lot of founders or executives that you're helping?
I do. I think that what happens is we don't even realize what stories we're telling ourselves, and there's silent stories that we're not even aware of. For instance, we hear everyone is expendable in business or replaceable. Everyone's replaceable. Well, if you take that story on, that's pretty difficult. That is a very difficult thing to be telling yourself. Everyone is replaceable. I'm replaceable. Well, that really comes down to I have no value.
Mm.
And how do you get past that if that is something you deeply believe? And those are the kinds of silent stories we carry, and we're not self-aware that we are telling ourselves things that are very damaging.
Yeah, 100%. Ugh, I could go on about authenticity more, but Dean, I want to get your take here.
One of the trickiest parts for any kind of marketing or advertising or selling, right, is that you have to hold these 2 ideas in your head at the same time, and they are absolutely opposed to each other. And the first is what I'm saying or what we sell or what we do or whatever is important and valuable. And so that's why I'm telling people about it. And at the very same time, you also have to believe none of these people care about us. They don't know about us. They might know about us, but they don't think we're for them. And us trying to forcefully say that we're important doesn't work. And so we have to approach our important message from the perspective of someone who doesn't think it's at all important and has lived their life just fine so far without us and has a very full life, whether we exist tomorrow or not. Right? And it's very tricky to sort of hold these 2 things in your head at the same time, so that you can be who you need to be, but understand the sort of walls and objections and canyons you're going to come up against.
A lot of compassion, Dean.
Yeah, 100%. And I got a message from the background. Thank you, Layla. I need to step closer to the mic. So I'll just hold it. But authenticity, it's become such a buzzword, but it's the core of how I really try hard to show up in life. And it does get hard, and in business and every single interaction. But it's it's more than just being real, as your 5 pillars kind of point out, or keeping it honest, as we see in a lot of these social media posts or like on a sales call. It's about really living in full alignment with who I am every single day. That's why I like that book I mentioned earlier, The Body Keeps the Score, because it helps me feel, what do I feel? What do I want? How does that make me feel?
Yeah.
And I love that you pointed out too, Allison, that we have to know where we're wanting to go. Because if we don't know where we're going to go, then we're just going to say yes to everything. But if we know where we're going to want to go, then we can put up boundaries and say no with confidence. And, even when it's uncomfortable, because none of this is easy. And you have to lean into that a little bit, because the truth is, people can feel when something is being forced. I think you mentioned that, and they really sense when someone's putting on a show. I mean, come from me, who puts on shows for myself and for businesses. I get that sometimes. I get so many comments. I get so much hate, but I also get a lot of love. And I try to be my best, but some people just are not going to be your vibe, and you got to be okay with that too. And just being in the world of marketing, personal branding, content creation, and the biggest lessons I've learned from that is people don't buy what you sell. They buy who you are and the ultimate dream. And so, I refuse to water myself down to fit into someone else's version of professional. And I refuse to like strip out my personality, my edge, or my fire, just because it might not make the algorithm happy, or, if I become to something I'm not to succeed, then that success was never meant for me. And I am okay with that, because there's a reason I failed, and it was to learn something valuable. But I mean, clearly I could go on about authenticity, but I'll digress, because we have one more topic, Guru of the Week, and we want to hear more about our guests. So let's get into our fourth topic, which is AI and outreach. I could talk about AI all day, and I'm a co-host on a Deconstructing Data, which is BDEX's show. So BDEX is a consumer data exchange platform, and they have a machine learning platform that helps businesses build their audiences that target on TV ads, like mass marketing, direct mail, you name it. But we talk about AI all the time on there, and AI in outreach, a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. But I think the common themes that I hear, at least on that, is like humans still have to be part of it. But I'd love to hear your take on this, Dean. Can you kick us off on AI and outreach?
It's the best and worst thing that's ever happened to outreach.
Yeah.
It really is. You can imagine that. Nobody really gets much junk mail in the actual mail from the post office anymore, right? There's still some, but not like it was 20 years ago, when your mailbox would be full every day with all kinds of weird offers and sales letter. And that's because email came along and dropped the cost of mass outreach down to near zero. And then, especially in the B2C world. And then it took a lot longer to make its way to the B2B world. But now what regular B2C outreach mass email did to paper mail, AI is doing to B2B cold outreach, messaging, LinkedIn, and emails and so on, where an AI can find for whoever you are, right? Unless you only sell in one little town and you're physically, you're a plumber and you can't go 100 miles away to go, right? But if you sell something that can be sold nationally or wider, then having an AI find, go through data sets and look at intent data and find the 300 VPs of operations at manufacturing companies with 50 million or more in revenue, and recently bought 3 CNC machines and all of these like filtering criteria, right? It's never been cheaper to find and then send to the exact kind of person that you want to do outreach to. The downside of that is because anytime something becomes cheap or near free, you get an explosion in that channel, right? And everybody's personal email, depending on how good your email provider is doing at shoving stuff into spam or a promotions tab, right? But everyone's got lots of stuff. And then and in B2B now, they also are getting a lot of stuff. Their feeds are filling up with it. Their LinkedIn DM channels are filling up, and their email inboxes are filling up. And what you end up with is just a crush of stuff that's like the targeting is quite good, but the messaging hasn't caught up to it yet. And so that's sort of the bad side. The good side is, like, quite selfishly, it's good for me, right? Where before some big company would come to me and say, hey, we're doing a mailing for people. We've got a list of executives who do X and Y. And so we're going to need like X number of emails written for them. Now they can like fine tune and split out those audiences so that, okay, I'm going to need one for a VP in a mid-sized manufacturing. I'm going to need one for a COO of a fintech company. I'm going to need one for a SaaS startup. They've got the, whereas before they might have 10,000 people. Now they have 350 here and 180 there. And so I get paid to write a lot more things. And it's more likely if you combine that like fine tuning of splitting out the list and targeting with, the really good writing, the reply rate is and engagement rate is way higher, because it's, before you'd send it to 10,000 people, it wouldn't really apply to 9,200 of them on this particular day or week or month or quarter. And so they just sort of ignore it. But now you can send it out to 10,000 people or 5,000 people, but you're sending it to just these chunks where it's much more likely to fit in based on what they've been searching for on the internet recently and what their company is going through and what people are saying about them in reviews and online and Reddit, wherever. So on the bad is it's a crush of junk in everybody's inbox, business or individual. The good news is the targeting is becoming so much better that if you still do a good job on the communication side, you can actually drive way more engagement than ever before.
It's so true. Yeah. And also big true point about reducing team sizes. That's something we also, hear is, and we've talked about it on this show even a few years ago. Like, this was coming, people. Like, your sales team, you're not going to need this giant inflated sales team anymore. You're going to need people who can prompt AI, who can still also be human. But yeah, I digress. We want to hear about two of you, but also you both just spent the last hour inspiring us, and we want to know who inspires you with the Guru of the Week. Ooh, and I had my microphone far away, so hopefully it wasn't too bad. But I'm going to pull myself out in good old-fashioned Wednesday style and pull your gurus up if you could tell us all about them.
Go ahead, Alison.
Okay. My inspiration is Devin Marks, and he is a TEDx prep guy, and you can find him on LinkedIn. And I love Devin and have become a friend of his over the years. Devin prepares people by helping them figure out their story, and that's why I love Devin. We all have our story, and it doesn't have to be a TEDx talk. That's what I've learned from Devin, is what is my story? Who am I? What do I have to tell? And when I first met Devin, I just shrank because I knew I was no one. I didn't have a story. How could I speak to this man that is preparing people for TEDx talks, TED Talks, on the big stage? I'm no one. And the confidence that he inspires in just be you. Each one of us has our story and stories, and many of them, and we are each inspiring, and our stories are silent, and we really need to know ourselves and be able to tell ourselves our own story. And we're afraid of that. We're afraid to tell our own story to ourselves. And that's why I love Devin. He really has changed my life.
Mine is Alan Gunsenhauser. Actually, I think Alan pronounces it Gunsenhauser as if it's a G-U instead of a G-O. And Alan is, because I work with so many, especially fractional chief marketing officers, CMOs. Alan is sort of the CMO's CMO. I think he's mentored at this point 150 plus CMOs at almost every big company and mid-sized company, famous ones you can think of. And he's one of those people who used to work for Forrester Research for a long time, and they're like marketing researcher. And he's got like about 150. Marketing likes to spin up a lot of models for how to think about something, how to attack a certain problem, how to structure a tech stack and stuff like that. And Alan is one of those guys. He's got like 150 of those models that have been published out in the world, like in his head. And the clients, especially private equity companies, can like buy a company and they say, yeah, so this company, the strengths it has is this, this, and this. And we know the weaknesses are going to be this, this, and that. And, one of the challenges is A, B, and C. And Alan's, okay, you need model like 62 and 119 and 4. And then he'll like put them together and then sort of execute those or help that marketing department. And it's always impressed me. If I ever need to know anything about marketing as a science, Alan's the guy that I ask.
Marketing about science. I'm like, marketing is such a science. It's such an art. It's so many things. But both of those gurus sound so interesting. Thank you both for sharing about your guru of the week. This has been an amazing Wednesday episode. Before we go, we want to know more about you. Could you let our listeners know, what is it exactly that you do? Who do you help? How do you help them? And if they feel like they could be helped by you, how could they reach out to you? We'll start with you, Dean.
It's so simple. It boils down to this. I write the very first thing that tomorrow's customer would read that you put in front of them. And the whole point of that is that if we can do that well enough, every other part of the company, from marketing to sales and whatever, gets to sort of play the game of capitalism on easy mode. And I just get paid to play it on insane mode for those first few moments of someone's attention. It's just a lot easier if I can figure out how to tell that prospect their story with you in it than the old way, which was you trying to make them sit still while you tell them your story. They don't want to listen to your story. They want their own story, but you can put yourself in it. And so if I can get that first few moments right, the rest of the company has an easier time marketing and selling.
Oh, that's so good. And how about you, Alison?
I work with the leader of leaders. I work with the individuals that are truly at the top of their game, that need the person with whom they can work and speak and engage and create something that they cannot do alone. They have a partner, someone that's been there and worked in that environment, who can be at their side and with them in conversation. I am the coach for the executive so that they're not by themselves and they can be engaged with someone and not alone.
Yeah, it's very much needed. Both of what you provide is very much needed. So thank you both for sharing your time with us. I know it's extremely valuable. And to our listeners, for next week, we have 2 more great guests. We've got Annie Cole and Emily Taffel coming on, same time, same place. For more details, you can just go to revening.com. It's actually revening.com/newsletter to sign up for the newsletter for more information. But thank you both so much again for coming on.
Yeah, nice
Thank
to
you.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
of course. I'm going to go ahead and close us out with a video. Bye, everyone.